Putin has betrayed the North Korean soldiers being sent into his country. And in this video, we're going to explain how the incompetence of Russia's leader led to this betrayal, and what it may mean for the Ukraine war going forward. But first, we need to answer a question. What on earth are North Korean soldiers doing in Ukraine in the first place? The answer to that question takes us back to June 19, 2024, and a visit Putin made to North Korea's capital of Pyongyang. Pictured standing side by side with Kim Jong-un during that trip, Putin clearly had an interesting idea in mind for this meeting of anti-Western minds. The idea soon became apparent to the rest of the world. Putin and Kim announced the creation of a new defensive pact, signed by both nations, that obliges each to deliver immediate military assistance by all means necessary in the face of aggression. Think of this pact as being similar to Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which says an attack on one NATO member is considered an attack on all of them. Putin and Kim's pact used similar language, essentially telling the world that North Korea would come to Putin's aid if Russia came under attack. Speculation abounded as to what this treaty might mean at this time. Was North Korea going to receive military tech secrets from Russia as part of this agreement? Perhaps. Would it send soldiers into Russia to battle against Ukraine? As it turns out, definitely. The invasion of Kursk may have been a huge victory for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, but it also appears to have had the unintended consequences of triggering Russia's pact with North Korea. The Kursk incursion is as clear an act of aggression on Russian territory as you can get, and it's given Putin all the reason he needs to welcome troops from another country to fight for him. Kim has obliged. As of November 12, 2024, Newsweek reports that Kim Jong-un has shipped around 12,000 of his country's soldiers into Russia. He's done all of this while ratifying the mutual defense pact he created with Putin, making the pact official. If anything, we're going to see the military ties between Russia and North Korea strengthen from here. More North Korean soldiers will likely arrive in Kursk. Putin is on the hook for coming to North Korea's aid if it ever finds itself attacked. It's also likely that North Korea will receive resources, food, and even cold hard cash in exchange for its soldiers, according to NBC News. It all seems very amicable, and Putin appears to be trying to put the North Korean soldiers to good use. The thousands of troops he's received are gathering with Russian soldiers to launch a 50,000-person offensive in Kursk in the coming days, according to RBC Ukraine. But some North Koreans have already seen battle. The first official clashes between the Ukrainian and North Korean troops were recorded on November 5th, says Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov. Several North Koreans were killed. But what does any of this have to do with a betrayal? On the surface, Putin and Kim's defensive pact seems to have delivered exactly what Putin needed: North Korean soldiers to feed into his meat grinder of a war against Ukraine. But therein lies the problem. Putin may have always intended to use those North Koreans as cannon fodder in Kursk, and that's not what he told the soldiers coming in from Pyongyang. Putin lied to the very troops who were sent to bolster his numbers. We know that because the first wounded North Korean soldier to return from the front lines has spoken out about what he was told and what he actually did once he arrived in Russia. On November 1, 2024, 4 days before official reports of the first official Ukrainian engagement against North Korean soldiers, Warthog Defense published an interview with a wounded North Korean soldier. Lying in bed covered with bandages, blood appearing to seep from a wound near his left eye, the soldier says that his 40-man unit was obliterated by a Ukrainian drone attack. That seems par for the course in this war. Ukraine has shown time and again how effective its drones can be on the battlefield. It used drone boats to destroy several ships in the Black Sea Fleet, including the famed Moskva cruiser. Reuters also reports that Ukraine has managed to make explosive kamikaze drones for as little as $500 apiece, each packed with a warhead secured to the unmanned aerial vehicle using cable ties. The Ukraine war has truly been the coming out party for drones as battle assets. The North Korean soldier who came back from the battlefield experienced that firsthand. Speaking to what appears to be a cameraman holding a smartphone, the unmanned North Korean soldier explains exactly what he walked into under Putin's directions. "There were about 40 of us, but all are dead," he claims. "I am left alone. I have nothing left to lose." That statement reveals that the soldier is about to tell everything he knows about how Putin really intends to use North Korean soldiers he's received from Kim Jong-un. But what's most startling is just how much animosity the soldier has in his voice for his supposed Russian comrades. Explaining what happened that left him lying severely injured in a hospital bed, the soldier says, "Russian dogs rushed to attack us." Presumably, he's referring to Russian soldiers, his supposed comrades, as dogs with this statement. It also appears that the 40-man North Korean unit was essentially pushed into a battle that the soldier believed it had no chance of winning. The soldier goes on, "The enemy covered us with artillery and drones. Baba Yaga, a demon from hell. The Baba Yaga reference is particularly interesting. In Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga is an ogress known for stealing children. She lives in a forest hut with her 3 sisters, also called Baba Yaga, and serves as the guardian of the fountains that feed the waters of life. But Baba Yaga is anything but a life giver. She cooks and eats the children she steals, making her appearance anywhere a portent of death. Why would the wounded North Korean soldier reference this obscure piece of Slavic mythology? Because Ukraine has turned the myth of Baba Yaga into a terrifying reality for its enemies. Granted, that doesn't mean it's sending mythical ogresses onto the battlefield to steal soldiers away. Instead, Baba Yaga is the name Ukraine has given to a terrifying hexacopter drone. Equipped with an infrared camera, the drone is capable of carrying a 33-pound rocket warhead, according to Forbes. Ukraine uses it effectively. It's managed to conduct numerous sneak attacks on Russian encampments by hovering the drone overhead, far out of view, before having it drop its explosive payload. It appears that Ukraine used Baba Yaga to great effect against the 40-person North Korean unit. Such great effect, in fact, that the wounded soldier dubbed the drone a demon from hell, a demon that killed all of his comrades. The wounded soldier goes on to describe the sheer terror of the scene that faced him when he was forced into battle against Ukraine. "My brother Kim and Mino died instantly," he mumbles to the camera while barely able to open his one exposed eye. "Kim's head was blown off and I was hiding under their bodies." The soldier makes clear the stark reality of what war against Ukraine will look like for the thousands of North Korean soldiers Putin has waiting in the wings to take back Kursk. So terrified was he that he took to hiding under the bodies of his fallen comrades, including his own brother. This suggests that he was sent to the battlefield ill-equipped to deal with Ukraine's artillery and drone attacks. A lamb led to a slaughter in a faraway land in which he had no personal interest. Therein lies Putin's betrayal of his new North Korean allies. The wounded soldier was never meant to be pushed onto the battlefield at all, he claims. His unit was supposed to stay behind the front lines to help Russia's soldiers with other tasks, rather than fighting against the demon from hell, Baba Yaga drones. The Russians promised that we would build fortifications and guard the objects, but they sent us on an assault in the Kursk region, the soldier claims. By now, it's clear that Putin has lured North Korea's soldiers into direct fighting under false pretenses. Whether Kim Jong-un knew the Russian president's plans is up for debate, but it seems likely that North Korea and Russia are colluding to tell the former's soldiers that they'll be heading to Russia to take part in relatively simple work behind the front lines. But once those soldiers arrive, they undergo brief training before being treated like so many hundreds of thousands of rank-and-file Russian soldiers before them. Nothing more than cannon fodder that Putin is using to soak up Ukrainian ammunition. The wounded North Korean pulls no punches in his next statements, clearly unafraid of whatever ramifications may come his way from Russia following the video's publication. He says, "The Ukrainians killed everyone. The blame for their death lies with the Russian army and President Putin. He deceived our great leader, the sun-faced Kim Jong-un." There are some interesting things to unpack from this claim. First is that the wounded soldier appears to bear no ill will toward his leader. Whether that's legitimate or because he is wary of President Kim seeing the video is unknown. But he believes Putin deceived Kim Jong-un, tricking North Korea's leader into sending soldiers for fortification projects only to feed them into his Ukraine war meat grinder. It's also interesting that the soldier seems to bear little ill will toward Ukraine. His anger is instead reserved for his supposed Russian comrades, who he appears to be claiming pushed his unit into a fight for which it wasn't prepared. This was all Putin's fault. The war, the soldier claims, is unlike anything the soldier has experienced. "This is a real meat grinder. There was no such thing even in 50 years. My grandfather talked about the war, but this war is a real hell." Presumably the soldier is referring to the Korean War that his grandfather would have likely fought in. The implication is that Putin's tactics against Ukraine are so barbaric and antiquated, as much toward his own soldiers as towards Ukraine's, that they have resulted in the very concept of war going backward. Putin's incompetence is laid bare for all to see. He's created a meat grinder because he doesn't care about what happens to his soldiers, and he lacks the tactical nous to do anything different. He just wants more bodies to force into ill-fated assaults against Ukraine. And bodies is the right term here. Confirming that Russia did nothing to prepare his unit, the soldier claims, "The Russians did not provide us with anything. They threw us into an assault without prior intelligence, without ammunition, without normal weapons." This claim tallies with numerous reports, some dating back to close to the beginning of the war, that say Russia isn't equipping its troops properly. In October 2022, The Insider lambasted Russia for its failures in equipping its then recently mobilized troops. "Even with sufficient numbers, the issue of arming and equipping troops still stands," the outlet claimed, while noting that Russia had problems supplying uniforms, ordnance weapons, and other key accessories. Those equipment problems haven't eased in 2024. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, claims that Russia simply cannot generate enough material to outfit substantial reserve personnel in the event of a crisis. Kursk was definitely a crisis, and it's clear that the ISW was right. Russia is sending its new North Korean soldiers into Kursk without the equipment they need. "We were used as bait," the wounded soldier adds. Ill-equipped soldiers literally pushed onto the battlefield by Russia to be shot to shreds by drones and artillery. Again, Putin's incompetence is made as clear as his betrayal. Russia's leader can't come up with ways to counter Ukraine's use of drones, so he just throws more people at the meat grinder, hoping that Ukraine will run out of ammunition and explosives before Russia runs out of people. The soldier concludes with a combination of a message for Putin and an explanation of how he was treated after miraculously surviving the Ukrainian assault. "President Putin, your army is weak and will lose this war," he proclaims. "Our brothers died because of the chaos in your army. It's not a war, it's a slaughter. A slaughter that has taken its toll on a Russian military that has, up until the time of producing this video, lost 714,380 people to death or injury since February 2022, if Ukraine's Ministry of Finance is to be believed." Again, it's Putin's tactical incompetence laid bare. Russia's leader allows his soldiers, even those he gets from other countries, to die in the most brutal conditions. As for how the wounded North Korean soldier was treated upon his return, he claims that it was a miracle that he survived at all. Russia wasn't going to evacuate him. "The Russian commander told me that I betrayed my country because I did not die in battle," he concludes. "They treat fighters like disposable wooden rice sticks." That may be the most damning assessment both of Putin's strategic inadequacy and his willingness to betray his own soldiers. To Russia's leader, the people he sends onto the front lines are as expendable as the ammunition they will be firing from their guns, if they even had them. And when Russia's tactics blow up in their face, they resort to blaming the survivors, accusing them of betrayal even after they have tricked them into fights in which they should have no part. That's what happened to the North Korean soldier. He was never meant to face off against Ukrainian drones. He, along with his 40-man unit, was supposed to build fortifications to help Russian soldiers prepare for Ukraine as it tries to push deeper into Kursk. Instead, he was pushed into a fight that he could never hope to win, a fight that claimed everybody in his unit, including his own brother. Now that we know how Putin treats his North Korean allies, is it any wonder that reports are already surfacing of soldiers deserting the Russian army? On October 15th, just a couple of weeks after the wounded soldier made this video, the Kyiv Independent reported that at least 18 North Korean soldiers had deserted their positions on the Ukrainian border. Motives for the desertions are still not established, but if those soldiers face the same lies and betrayal as the wounded man and his unit, the odds are high that these soldiers ran because they didn't sign up to be slaughtered. They were meant to support, not be fed into a meat grinder. So, what happens now? Despite these early reports, it doesn't look like the defensive pact between Russia and North Korea is going to end anytime soon. As we've already mentioned, North Korea recently ratified the pact, making it 100% official. Putin is also preparing 50,000 troops, both Russian and North Korean, to launch an all-out offensive on the Ukrainian positions in Kursk. It also appears that the thousands of North Korean troops who've yet to taste combat against Ukraine will be better equipped than the unfortunate soldier we've covered in this video. The New York Times reports that Moscow will be supplying its North Korean soldiers with sniper rifles, RPGs and machine guns, along with training in Russia's basic infantry tactics. None of this seemed to be supplied to the wounded soldiers unit. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh also says, "We fully expect that DPRK soldiers could be engaged in combat," when talking about how the US expects Putin to use his North Korean soldiers. That's not what they're in the country to do, according to the wounded soldier, but it's what's likely to happen, whether the North Koreans like it or not. Will Putin follow through on his promise to provide equipment to the next wave of North Korean soldiers he sends into Kursk? He's already betrayed those soldiers once. What's to say he won't do it again, only on a much larger scale? He may plan to use thousands of North Korean soldiers as cannon fodder so Russia's own troops can follow up after Ukraine depletes its ammo reserves. One thing's for certain, it will be very interesting to see how the relationship between Putin and Kim evolves if the wounded soldier's claims of Putin pulling the wool over Kim's eyes turn out to be true. But what do you think about what the wounded North Korean soldier had to say about Putin and how Russia's leader used his unit? Do you believe the next wave of borrowed soldiers will be better equipped to deal with Ukraine? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and thank you for watching the video.